Kia ora, welcome to episode 4 of my journey to create a tiny home community in Nelson. Please subscribe to this YouTube channel or follow me at commonground.net.nz for more updates where I'm going to be posting newsletters, more videos, and ways for you to be in contact. This episode is focusing on the support and interest that I've received to date and how it's progressing with me doing this community-led aspect, which is getting information from what exists already and what interest there is. So I originally started with looking for myself for a tiny home, and so I contacted Littlefoot Tiny Homes, which is located in Queenstown in the South Island, about their interest to collaborate. And I was contacted by Leon, who started a site called tinyvillage.nz with the purpose of connecting people who wanted to find land to put their tiny homes on or to find a tiny home itself. And he really loves the vision of creating tiny home villages. And so he and I have been speaking about how we can support each other's work. I was also contacting Shay of Shay's Tiny Homes, who's got a franchise in Wanaka, about also potential partnership. And I know she also wants to create a village, but how we might work in collaboration is still to be explored. I also realize that there's a lot of us who do have this village idea for tiny homes, which is a niche into itself, and wouldn't it be beneficial for all of us to meet regularly to share how we're getting along, given that there's so many gray areas and things for us to learn and hurdles to jump through. So I've contacted the few folks that I know who specifically have this mission of a tiny home village and have asked them if they'd like to join a mastermind. Now, I will do another video on the benefits of a mastermind. I also have a page on my website dedicated to a mastermind program that I'm offering. On my website, you can find it actually on the front page. There's a button. So if you're really interested to join either a mastermind for a general community-focused housing project, so this tiny home mastermind would be those of us who specifically focused on that mission and moving that forward. We can only take a maximum, I think, of 6. So if you're interested, do be in touch soon. And then there's also Lisa of the Rotorua Off-Grid Tiny House Village, and I've created some YouTube videos that you can follow. I also had a meeting with 3 housing advocates in Nelson. 2 are members of the Community Action Nelson group, who in 2020 held a series of workshops or discussions in the center of Nelson around what does housing mean to people. And they got a whole bunch of interesting information collected from people about what they want in terms of housing. And they had a lot of ideas in terms of how to go forward with this, and we're very supportive of the idea. I also met in that meeting with Ian McComb, who's a local developer who has similar values to me in terms of affordability and sustainability and connectedness. And so we're exploring how we could collaborate further on this. He's also worked as an engineer and with council, so it was a very good support for me here. They recommended also being in touch with the Nelson Tasman Housing Trust, who has a few projects underway. Now, this isn't something where they necessarily take my project under their wing, but they could channel the funding, that if I found funding for any part of my project, I could apply under the trust perhaps. So I've got a meeting set up, or I'm trying to set up a meeting with the board and or staff in order to explore this possibility that if I came up with a good idea with a proposal, if they would back it or support it. I've been in touch with Habitat for Humanity to set up a meeting in terms of their partnership, but I'm still waiting to set that meeting. And then in terms of a feasibility study, so when land is actually secured and we look at, well, what's feasible to do on that land? How many houses? Could we have the kind of infrastructure we'd like to have with the localized systems, etc., roading? I'd need a feasibility study. Now, normally they cost around $150,000 on average, and for my one eco-village client that I have, we're looking at the Raglan area, we do have a funder that has said that they would be interested to fund this feasibility study in order to be able to unlock the affordable housing that it would make available. So I'd be looking for something similar. That funder is in the Waikato, so I'd need to look for other funders, either that are nationally or for this area. I've been recommended that perhaps the Rata Foundation, which builds capacity for community, could be a potential. And then I've been suggested to contact the developer who's put together a proposal to develop in the Kaka Valley. They have a large development plan. There's been a bit of resistance to it. Maybe they'd be interested to either look at this particular piece of land that they're having the proposal, or potentially they have other land that they're looking to develop where they might like to include a tiny home part of that community. So another conversation to be had. And then I've been approached by a man who who has lived in an intentional community, who has a lot of skills, who just like to see this project thrive and however he could help. And I was contacted by Steph, which is our local journalist, who'd like to cover the story. So I'm waiting to hear back and see what kind of angle they'd like to put, and hopefully also have an ongoing series of articles. And last but not least for this episode, there was the big Tiny Expo that was held about this time last year in Motueka, which is about 45 minutes away, where it was demonstrating a few tiny homes, but it was really about the concept, the systems that need to be put into place to allow tiny homes to have an easier way. Julie Jacobson was the main organizer of that, and then she's since done a lot of campaigning with the district council around getting more positive legislation that helps. And she, I believe, has secured the campground in Motueka for the purposes of creating a village. So I'll be speaking with her about what she knows are the enablers and the barriers and what might help me in this region. And maybe we could do parallel. I could interview her and see how it's going with her project. So that's summing up the interest and support that I've had so far in this project, which has been all very positive, and I look forward to getting more. Please be in touch if you've got any leads for anything that this project might need. I look forward to hearing from possible collaborators about how we might work together. Kia ora.